The royal prisoner on a dying world. Princess Sireya's eyes slowly opened. Her vision was blurry. Her royal dress was torn. The air was thick with heat and dust. She lay in a pit of dry red sand, her silver skin marked with bruises. Above her, two suns blazed in the sky like angry gods. This was not her palace. This was not her world. This was the prison planet of Carthun, a savage, forgotten world at the edge of the galaxy. No cities, no machines, no mercy. It was a place where criminals were left to die, and now so was she. Just hours ago, she had been royalty, the heir to the Altherian Empire. But a power-hungry general had betrayed her father, claiming the throne. Sireya was captured, sedated, and dumped here like trash. No trial, no farewell, just exile. She tried to sit up but cried out in pain. Her leg was hurt, maybe broken. Her breathing was fast. She looked around. There was nothing but dust, rocks, and silence. No signs of life. Suddenly, her wrist implant blinked once, a weak signal. She pressed it, but it fizzled and died. No power. No help coming. Tears filled her eyes. Was this the end? A princess dying alone on a rock? She crawled to a nearby boulder and leaned against it, panting. Hours passed. The twin suns fell low. The cold night was coming, and then a sound. Leaves rustled. Footsteps, heavy, slow. Something, or someone, was near. She froze. Her heart pounded. Was it a beast? A scavenger? She had no weapon, no strength to run. Then from behind a thick bush he appeared, a tall figure, covered in animal skins. His face was rough, bearded, half hidden behind tangled hair. His eyes were sharp and green. In one hand, he held a long wooden spear. In the other, he carried a bundle of sticks. He stopped when he saw her. For a long moment, they stared at each other. She raised her trembling hand. "Help, please." The man tilted his head. He didn't understand her language, but he saw the pain in her eyes. He stepped closer. She flinched. He knelt beside her without a word. His hands were large but gentle. He looked at her leg, then tore a piece of cloth from his own tunic. Carefully, he wrapped it around her wound. She was shocked. This human, clearly primitive, was helping her, not eating her, not ignoring her. Helping. He picked her up slowly, gently, like she weighed nothing. She gasped, holding onto his shoulder. He smelled like smoke and soil. He didn't speak. He just walked. Through the dying forest, across dry riverbeds, up rocky hills. Hours passed. The night was freezing now. She shivered, teeth chattering. Finally, they reached a small cave. Inside it was warm. A fire glowed. Animal skins lined the walls. It was rough, but safe. He placed her near the fire, then covered her with a thick fur blanket. She watched him add sticks to the flames and cook something in a stone pot. The smell was strange, but good. When the food was ready, he offered her some. She hesitated, then took it. It was warm. Her stomach thanked her. He smiled faintly. She blinked. Was that kindness? Later, as she lay by the fire, she looked at him. He was sharpening his spear. His back was strong, his movements smooth. This human, this savage, was more than she expected. She didn't know his name. She didn't know if he understood who she was, but somehow she felt safe. As her eyes closed, one thought echoed in her mind. He is not a beast. Sireya woke with a sharp gasp. For a second, she didn't know where she was. The cave walls were dark. Shadows danced from a small fire nearby. Her body ached. But it wasn't the cold that woke her. It was the sound. A growl. Low, deep, close. Her eyes shot toward the entrance of the cave. There it was. A huge beast, black fur, 4 yellow eyes and claws like swords, stood just outside the firelight. It sniffed the air. its breath forming icy clouds. Soraya tried to scream, but fear closed her throat. She turned her head. Where was the human? Where was her only protector? The beast stepped closer. The fire crackled. Her body was frozen with fear. It was hunting her. She had seen creatures like this in training vids. Night fangs, apex predators of Carthun. Fast, smart, unstoppable. And then, a blur shot from the shadows. The human leapt. With a roar louder than the beast's, he crashed into the creature with nothing but a spear. He was half-dressed, face marked with ash, muscles tensed like iron cables. The beast screamed and snapped, slashing its claws. But the human didn't stop. He stabbed, rolled, dodged, shouted in a strange, wild voice that echoed through the cave. Soraya stared, heart pounding. He moved like no human she had ever seen, not trained, not taught. Instinct, pure primal instinct. The spear broke. The beast lunged. The human caught it by the jaws. Bare hands. Blood ran from his arm, but he didn't let go. With a grunt of rage, he slammed the creature against the rock wall again, and again, until it stopped moving. Silence. The beast lay dead. The human stood panting, covered in blood and sweat. Soraya could not speak. He looked at her, gave a slow nod, and collapsed beside the fire. Hours passed. She used cloth to stop his bleeding. He never cried out, just grunted once, then drifted into sleep. His chest rose and fell slowly. As dawn came, she sat beside him and stared at the creature he killed. He saved her. Again. No weapons, no armor, just willpower, just courage. Who was this man? Later that morning he woke up. She tried to thank him, but he only nodded. Still, she could tell. He understood. He pulled out a bundle of stones and wood and began carving. Using his hands and sharpened bone, he built another spear. Then a second one. Then a bow. He moved with purpose. Soraya watched. Curious. She had always thought humans were base creatures. Uneducated, unrefined, but this one was different. He wasn't just surviving. He was adapting. By nightfall, he had built a windshield at the cave's entrance, then caught 2 smaller beasts using traps. He even boiled drinking water using hot rocks. Soraya had seen elite warriors trained from birth, but none had the calm control this man had. He couldn't speak her language, but his actions spoke clearly. You are safe here. I will protect you. Before sleeping, she picked up a burnt stick and wrote her name on the cave wall, Soraya. He looked at it, then slowly drew a rough mark beside hers. His name. Maybe. It looked like John. She smiled. That night, as the stars lit the sky, she sat beside him near the fire. Her body still hurt, but her heart felt warm. She was the last hope of a royal family. He was a nameless man with no home, and yet, on this savage world, he was her shield. Soraya had never held a wooden spear in her life. Born in crystal towers, trained in diplomacy, and taught that real power came through law and bloodlines, she never imagined survival would one day depend on a sharpened stick and a half-naked human who didn't speak her language. But now, sitting outside the cave, watching him carve that new spear by firelight, she knew everything had changed. He handed it to her. It was light, rough, but perfectly balanced. Not royal, not graceful, but real. Strong. She looked at him. His eyes didn't mock her. He only nodded once. That was it. It was time to learn. The next days passed in strange rhythm. John, she had chosen to call him that, taught by doing. He would throw the spear. She would watch. Then he'd hand it to her. Point. Wait. She tried. Missed. Again. Missed. The third time, the spear spun out of her hand and landed in a tree trunk. He grinned. For the first time, she smiled back. That night, She cooked while he rested. She tried to copy his method. He helped without words. Slowly, a language formed between them, not of speech, but of gestures, glances, shared firelight. Each night they added to the cave wall. First her name, then his, then small symbols, sun, fire, claw, beast, stars. He pointed to the sky one night, then to himself. She understood. He came from beyond. The stars too. But how? Why was a human like him on this forgotten world, she tried to ask, using hand motions. He only looked away, eyes dark. Pain lived inside him. Deep pain. He never spoke. But that silence spoke loudest. One evening, John showed her a hidden path. It led through twisted trees across dry ground to a wide rocky hill. At the top stood a strange structure, half-buried metal bones of an old starship, rusted, dead, its wings broken. Sireya touched the ship's hull. It was Altherian design. Her people's. She stepped inside. Inside were signs of life, torn chairs, faded uniforms, a broken banner, a crash site. John pointed at a corner. There lay a skeleton, small, fragile. She covered her mouth. It was a child. He knelt beside it. Quiet. Gentle. Then he pointed to his own chest, then to the child, and back again. Sireya's heart stopped. Was that his child? Her hands shook. He had lost someone. Here. Alone. With no one to help. That's why he lived like this. That's why he fought so hard. He wasn't just surviving for himself. He was surviving because he had lost everything. She sat beside him on the ship's broken floor. Silence filled the place. Heavy. Real. They didn't need words anymore. That night, back in the cave, Sireya held the spear tight. Something had changed in her. She was no longer just a royal girl waiting for rescue. She was learning to survive, to protect, to fight. She had thought John was primitive. Now she saw the truth. He was stronger than any man she had ever known, and without realizing it, the princess and the savage had become something more. A team. Rain fell for the first time since Sireya had landed on Carthun. It wasn't gentle. It slammed the cave roof like thunder drums, flooding the air with the scent of wet dust and burnt leaves. Sireya sat inside, watching the storm through the cave entrance. The fire was out. John sat across from her, sharpening a stone blade in silence. Her royal dress was long gone. Now she wore stitched hide, dyed with purple berries she had crushed, herself. Her silver hair was tied back. She didn't look like a princess anymore, but she had never felt more alive. Still, something burned in her chest. Her father didn't know she was alive. Her people believed her dead, and she had no way of returning home. Until now. Earlier that day, deep in the wreckage of the crashed Altherian ship, John had found something. Core fragment, small, glowing, cracked but pulsing, a power cell. Sireya knew what it meant. It was weak, but with enough focus and skill, it could charge a signal emitter, enough to send a distress call to any ship passing nearby. It would take days to rig, maybe weeks, but it was possible. She stared at the tiny cell now, cupped in her palms like a flame of hope. John watched her. He didn't stop her. He helped. They worked together in silence day and night. Sireya dismantled a console. John brought wires, metal, even a piece of crystal antenna from a cave ridge he'd once explored. He didn't ask why. He trusted her, and when it was ready, a strange mismatched device of metal and bone, they placed it on the cave's highest cliff. That night, Sireya pressed the button. The device sparked, then buzzed, then a sharp ping. She stepped back. "It's working," she whispered. John looked at her, waiting. Sireya turned slowly and met his eyes. She wanted to explain that someone may come. that her father might send ships, that she might be taken away, back to her world. But how could she explain that? How could she say goodbye to the only soul who had protected her when she was nothing? She didn't try. She just stepped close to him and took his hand. His fingers were rough, hers were soft, but they fit together perfectly. 3 days passed, then came the ship, not from her people, not from the Empire. It wasn't even marked. It landed fast, loud, angry, bounty hunters. Soraya screamed as the cave exploded in dust. John pushed her behind, a boulder. Energy shots tore into the cave walls. A deep voice shouted in a tongue she knew. Slavers from the black markets of Vostru Prime. They had picked up the signal, and they had come to take her. John didn't wait. He ran. Not away, toward them, spear in one hand, blade in the other. A madman charging toward guns. The hunters laughed until he stabbed one straight through the eye. Soraya crawled behind a rock, trying to reach her broken communicator. Her fingers bled. Her head spun. Outside, Jan fought like a storm. He moved, through smoke and fire like a shadow, striking, vanishing, reappearing again. His body was cut, burned, but he didn't stop. One by one, the hunters fell. But then, a shot. John flew back. Soraya screamed his name. He didn't answer. She ran to him, dragging her broken body across the stones. He was alive, but barely. She grabbed the hunter's blaster and fired it without mercy. When it was over, the ground was red. John was bleeding. The signal device had been smashed in the fight. She knelt beside him, holding his head in her lap, tears falling onto his face. "You saved me again," she whispered. He blinked, barely conscious. She looked up at the sky. No ships, no rescue, not yet. But she wasn't scared. She would protect him now, just like he protected her. Blood, smoke, fire. The cave entrance was ruined. The floor was stained red. And the human, John, lay motionless in Soraya's arms. She pressed her hand to his chest, still breathing. Barely. Her eyes burned with tears. But she didn't cry. Not anymore. A princess didn't cry. A warrior didn't cry. She gently laid his head down, stood up, and picked up the blaster from the ground. The alien weapon felt heavy in her hands, but her grip was steady. There were still more bounty hunters, out there, and now they would face her. She wrapped his chest in cloth and dragged him deeper into the cave, behind the stone shelves and under the firs. She whispered softly, "Stay alive. You saved me. Now I will save you." Then she left, out into the wild, into the storm. There were 5 bounty hunters remaining. She saw them through the trees. They were armored, scanning the forest with red visors. One of them kicked over the signal tower, laughing. They thought Jan had been the only threat. They were wrong. Soraya ran through the forest, jumping over roots, ducking under branches. Every part of her body hurt, but her mind was clear. She set the first trap, a rope tied to a bent branch. When one of the hunters stepped near it, snap. He was lifted into the air, shouting as his blaster fell. Soraya rushed in and fired once. The alien dropped, limp. The second fell into a pit she remembered from earlier. She had covered it with leaves and blood-soaked cloth from John's old wounds. The third heard the scream and ran to help, but Soraya was waiting above him in the trees. She jumped down like a shadow and smashed a rock against his helmet. 3 down, 2 left. They grouped up now. Smart. They scanned everything, fired blindly into the trees. Soraya knew she couldn't beat both alone, so she did what John would have done. She lured them. She ran out, yelling, waving the blaster. They chased her. She ran straight into the cave and disappeared behind the wall. They entered slowly, blasters ready. Then they tripped the wires. Boom! The fire John used for cooking oil ignited. The blast didn't kill them, but it blinded them. That was enough. Soraya attacked with her spear. She didn't fight like a soldier. She fought like a survivor. When it was over. Her body was covered in bruises, her arm was sliced, and her breath came in short gasps. But the hunters were dead. All of them. She stood over their bodies, hands shaking, tears mixing with sweat. She had done it, not with ships, not with guards, with courage, with instinct, with everything she had learned from John. Later, she returned to him. He was still breathing. She placed her forehead on his. "John, I did it. I saved you this time." 3 days passed. She fed him broth. She cleaned his wounds. She sang to him softly in her language, and then one morning, his eyes opened. He blinked, looked around, then saw her. She smiled. "Welcome back." He didn't speak. He never had. But he reached for her hand, and for the first time she saw something new in his eyes. Pride. That evening, as the two sat near a new fire, Sirea looked up at the stars. The signal tower was gone. The hunters were dead. But someone else would come, maybe enemies, maybe her people, but she no longer feared them, because now they were not just two survivors. They were a team, a princess, and a human savage who took down a hunter squad with nothing but stone, fire, and instinct. The sky tore open with golden light. It wasn't the sun. It was a ship, a royal dreadnought. Huge, silent, its silver hull glowing with blue runes of the Altherian Empire. It hovered above the jungle like a god descending. Princess Sirea stood on a high cliff, John beside her, wrapped in furs and still weak from his wounds. His arm was around her shoulders. His eyes, quiet but sharp, watched the sky. "They found me," she whispered. He didn't react. Maybe he didn't understand, or maybe he understood too much. The next morning, the land around them turned to steel. Royal guards dropped from the sky, armed in golden armor, marching with perfect precision. They pointed scanners at trees, aimed rifles at rocks, barked orders in alien tongues, and then he arrived, the Emperor, her father, tall, regal, robed in living silk, a crown of light on his head, his face cold as ice. His voice echoed through the trees. "Where is my daughter?" Sirea stepped forward. "I'm here, father." He froze. Her skin was dirty, her clothes handmade, her hair in braids. She didn't look like a princess. She looked like a survivor, but she stood tall. Behind her, John limped out, holding the spear he carved. He said nothing, just stood beside her, calm. The guards tensed. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "What is that?" He was looking at John like he was a wild animal. Sirea stepped between them. "He is the reason I'm alive." The Emperor's voice rose. "You're saying that savage protected you?" She nodded. "More than any royal guard ever did." There was silence. Wind blew. The guards shifted. One stepped forward. "Shall we remove the human, Your Grace?" John's hand tightened, on the spear. "No," Sirea said sharply. The Emperor frowned. "He's dangerous, look at him, he's nothing." Sirea turned slowly. Her voice was soft but steady. "You call him nothing?" He faced beasts, slavers, bounty hunters, alone. "He bled for me. He starved for me. He killed for me." She looked back at John, and he never once asked for anything in return. Her eyes locked with her father's. "I will not leave him." Gasps. The guards looked at one another. The Emperor's face changed. Anger, shock, confusion. He stepped forward. "You would shame your bloodline for this creature?" Sirea raised her chin. "No, father, I would honor it. He did what no noble, no fleet, no soldier could. He saved me. He gave me back my will to live." She turned to the guards. "This human is not a savage. He is a warrior, a protector. My protector." Then in front of everyone, she knelt beside John and placed her hand on his heart. The jungle was silent. No bird, no wind, just heartbeats. The Emperor looked at his daughter, then at John, then back again. "I came here to recover a daughter," he said. He paused. "But I see now. I found a queen. He turned to his men. No one touches the human. Later, that day, as the ships prepared for departure, John stood alone at the cave. Sirea came to him. They want me to go back, to sit on a throne again. He looked down, not answering. She placed something in his hand, a small golden pendant, shaped like a flame. My royal seal, she whispered. If you ever come to my world, show them this. They'll know you are under my protection. He nodded once. She leaned forward and touched her forehead to his. You are not just a man, she whispered. You are legend. The royal fleet waited in the sky like a storm held back by will. Inside the lead ship, Princess Sirea stood before a mirror. Cleaned, dressed in fresh robes, hair woven with silver threads, but she didn't see royalty in the mirror. She saw a girl who had been broken and rebuilt by fire. Behind her, guards whispered. Officers debated. The ship's admiral demanded to know why the human hadn't been put in a cage. Sirea ignored them. Outside, John stood under a glowing tree, alone, dressed in armor made from pieces of the fallen hunters. Still barefoot, still silent. A group of nobles watched him from a distance, disgust on their faces. He looks like an animal, one said. A threat, whispered another. Sirea stepped into the light and silenced them with her voice. Then let me tell you what kind of animal
he is.
She turned to the room filled with royalty and generals and nobles, her people. When I was thrown on that planet, I had nothing. No food, no army, no tech. Only one thing saved me. She pointed toward John. Him. They didn't understand. So she told them. She told them how John had carried her when she couldn't walk, how he built shelter from nothing, how he fought a night fang barehanded and didn't run, how he faced bounty hunters and won, how he almost died to save someone he didn't even know, and how he never once asked who she was. Not for power, not for reward, not for glory. Now, she said, turning to the Emperor, what kind of empire ignores a heart like that? The Emperor stood silent, then spoke. You want me to honor this wild man? No, Sirea replied. I want you to recognize him. The next day, the entire capital gathered in the Sky Hall, a floating stage built over clouds. Billions watched from across the galaxy. For the first time in history, a non-Altherian was called forward during a royal rite. John walked slowly, led by Sirea. His steps echoed, his face calm. The nobles whispered, the guards frowned, the people gasped, and the Emperor stepped forward. Before all the stars, he said, You were not born in our worlds. You have no name in our books. But today, your name enters history. He lifted a glowing blade and placed it on John's shoulder. Protector of the crown, guardian of the flame. A roar spread through the city, across the stars. Through ships and planets, the savage human was now legend. That night, Sirea stood beside John on the palace balcony. Fireworks lit the sky. But he didn't watch the lights. He watched the stars. She touched his hand. You want to go back, don't you? He looked at her, then nodded. Once. Not because he hated her world, but because he didn't belong in a throne of gold. He belonged in the wild, in the forests, among the stars. She smiled sadly. Then I'll make sure you're remembered. He opened his hand. In it was the royal seal she gave him. He handed it back. She shook her head. No, keep it. Wherever you go, it will protect you. 1 week later, the galaxy woke to news of a quiet departure. A small ship, unnamed, unarmed, slipped past the outer gates. No escort, no sound. Inside, one man sat alone, carrying no crown, but carrying every story that would live for 1,000 years. Across alien taverns, warships, temples, and colonies, the story would spread. A princess was lost. A human found her. The galaxy ignored him, until he made the galaxy kneel. They called him many names. The ghost with a spear, the silent flame, But to one woman who ruled 100 worlds, he would always be something else, her hero,